Hello everybody, welcome back to another video here on Cobblers Vlogs. We're here with another opposition view. Today we're talking to Freddie Webb from the PO4 Podcast, part of Pompey News. Now, obviously the Cobblers take on Portsmouth at the weekend. Hello to everybody that's with us in the chat. We've got Reliable here, Luke NTFC is here, Lucy Mayfair is here, Adam Page is here, Luke NTFC, the other one, Jason Rodhouse as well. So great to see a couple of you tuning in already. It seems like it's a good time to play Portsmouth, which we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail with Freddie. He's obviously, as I mentioned, a member of the PO4 podcast, so we'll get him to talk about that at the end as well, if you want to go and have a listen to that. But first of all, Freddie, obviously we're all still in lockdown. The roadmap's been announced, so that there's kind of some hope there, but how are you coping sitting at home, or are you getting out and about?
Yeah, well, it's been all sorts, really, to be honest. By now, all the two of the vulnerable members of my family have had the vaccine, so that's excellent. Slowly getting some light at the end of the tunnel now. Beforehand, I had to shield for about 8 months because I'm living with them at the moment. So that's been on and off in terms of being rough or not, as you'd expect. But yeah, it's improving slowly, like everybody. So that's all you got to focus on, I suppose.
Good news. Yeah, I couldn't imagine having to sort of stay in for that long. Just, I think in the summer I was going out for walks sort of every day, and it just, it's really nice to get out of the house. So I couldn't imagine.
I just limited myself to like a short, very small space around the house. Nothing, nowhere ridiculous. Nowhere more than 2 miles, if that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I suppose we've all got to try and do something to keep ourselves entertained. My grandparents have had the vaccine as well. Hopefully, my parents will get that soon, and we should all be back to normal by at least maybe, if not June, maybe July, August. But anyway, we're not here to talk about kind of health issues that are going on in the world at the minute. We're here to talk about Northampton, who take on Portsmouth on Saturday afternoon. Obviously, you're a Portsmouth fan. We'll kind of start off quite broad, talk about your season so far, and then sort of hone in on the game itself. So Portsmouth, you're obviously in fifth, you're in the playoff places. It's dreamland for us. You're obviously not doing too well in recent times, which we'll kind of get into in more detail. But how has your season been so far as a whole?
Mixed. I think is the best way to describe it. Before the start of the season, most Pompey fans had in their head it was boom or bust in terms of promotion or not, and that's kind of the reason why, if you look at Portsmouth fan threads on Twitter, it's very up and down. Either people saying the team's brilliant, it's fine, there'll be no issues, they'll get automatic promotion, no problem, to just complete disillusion, which we'll go on to later. In terms of the season itself, in a nutshell, very bad start, mainly because Portsmouth were sticking to the same formation and the same brand of football that they were last season and the season before, with different players, where we would go on a good string of results, but then there's patchy form, and then that dreadful game against Oxford United in the playoffs. But then against Gillingham away, we changed the formation, went to a very high pressing 4-4-2, very aggressive, which basically got the best out of some of our excellent attacking players, like John Marquis, who played for Northampton at one point, Ronan Curtis, Marcus Harness. It got the best out of those players, so that went really well. And we went on a long run of doing exceptionally. We ended up at first at one point, got like 6 clean sheets in a row in all competitions, which was ridiculous. That's an exceptional record. Mm-hmm. But then the wheels started to fall off around February time, mainly because of fatigue. Obviously, yourselves, that pretty much, I can't remember the last time Portsmouth didn't play Saturday, Tuesday in a week.
Yeah.
And I think we've only got like 2 weeks for the rest of the season where Portsmouth aren't playing Saturday, Tuesday, which is a bit much. So once players were fatigued, they were tired, they couldn't play the same aggressive full pressing football like they were, which got them results. Coupled with some unlucky games. Losing 4-0 to Hull City, who were top at the time, that was a big loss. And then the Tuesday night game against Lincoln City away, where it was a very even game, but Jack Watmore, our centre half, got sent off on the half-hour mark, so we basically had to try and hold on to the point for 70 minutes, and that didn't work. And ever since, it's been patchy form. The formation, which worked earlier on, and the style of play more specifically, that was scrapped. And from there, Portsmouth at the moment don't have a clear style of play or a settled team, and that's why we're getting some of the bad results at the moment.
Yes, it sounds like you've had a very sort of up and down season. I think the reason you're probably in the playoffs is I think teams that tend to go up automatically in the lower leagues go on a run. They go on a 15-game kind of 10, 15-game unbeaten run. And I guess you guys just haven't been able to kind of put that solid run together. I mean, you didn't have the best start to the season. If you just look at some of your results, you were drawing and losing to teams around us. You drew 0-0 to Rochdale. You lost 2-1 to Wigan, who kind of looked dead and buried sort of at the start of the season, especially. And obviously you lost 3-1 to Bristol Rovers. So how has that come about? What's the reasoning behind your kind of defeats to the teams that are around us, and what can we kind of do to cause that same kind of result?
Those early defeats, it was mainly down to style of football and individual errors. You were saying on the PO4 Podcast last time, a lot of Northampton's defeats have gone down to individual errors. It's the same. It's League One. It's the same up and down the table. A lot of teams, it happens. That style of football was the 4-2-3-1, which worked 2 seasons ago with some different players, but didn't work with this team very well. It was very direct and very, very standoffish. Portsmouth like to drop deep and spring on the counter attack, but when you go away to some of the smaller teams, they're looking to do that as well. And sometimes Portsmouth, like now, Portsmouth struggle a fair bit when they're asked to break down 2 banks of 4. Because basically they're an exceptional team at exploiting mistakes. So that's why the high press worked so much. If you've got in the 4-4-2, if you've got players like John Marquis, Marcus Harness, Ronan Curtis, and Ryan Williams in the front 4, they're very agile. They work their socks off, and they force the defence to make a mistake, and then they effectively counter-attack high up the pitch. That's where they score their goals from most of the time. So,
go on, carry on.
No, go on, Matt. It's fine.
Okay, so yeah, if you think if you're saying you struggle to you like hitting teams on the break, you're not so good against sort of teams that sit back, which is good news to us, and we're going to get on to why maybe it's a good time for us to play you later on. Do you think that's why you've maybe picked up better results against the teams around you? You've obviously you've beaten Sunderland this season, you've beaten Lincoln, you've beaten Hull, you've beaten those lot down the road that we don't like, and you've beaten Charlton as well. So do you think maybe you're better kind of against the teams that may come at you a little bit more, like your Hulls, Charltons, Sunderlands, Lincolns?
When Portsmouth set up in the right way and when the players are fully confident, yes. You mentioned the Sunderland result at the Stadium of Light. That was the perfect thing. We were against a 3-5-2 where they looked to try and play out from the back with their 3 centre halves, but the front 4 were all the way pushed up with the rest of the squad, like the back 4 and the 2 centre midfielders occupying the space behind them. So when that happened, it forced the Sunderland mistakes, and that's the main way that Portsmouth score their goals. But in saying that, Portsmouth forwards still have a lot of quality. I mean, Marcus Harness is an exceptionally technical footballer and one of our better players. John Marquis, even though he's underperforming his expected goals, so he's underperforming his scoring chances, he's still a great striker at this level, in my opinion, our best striker if he plays. So yeah, it again, I'm going back to the way it entirely depends on how they set up and the confidence in the squad. And the reason why Northampton want to play Portsmouth at the moment is the confidence isn't there. There's more fatigue than from earlier in the season, and Kenny Jackett doesn't know his best team yet in terms of formation and picking the players at the moment.
Yes, you mentioned Kenny Jackett, your manager. Obviously, seems similar to a Keith Curl character. Doesn't really interact with the fans too much. Likes to stay off social media. I know Keith Curl has social media, but isn't not anymore, and has since obviously left the club. But seems very similar to our kind of old manager. And like you said, there is a divide sort of between the fan base. What's he like? Are you a fan of him? Do Portsmouth fans seem to want to get rid of him and get somebody new in, or are they kind of okay with him?
I think the best way to describe it now, this is Kenny Jackett's 4th season. It's the last year of his contract. Mm-hmm. I thought he was the first name on my lips when Portsmouth got promoted as a manager to stabilise the club and turn them from a League 2 club to a League 1 club. Because if you remember, when Portsmouth were in League 2, they weren't even the same club as they were when they were in the Premier League in terms of finances and everything. So first season, perfect consolidation season, finished under the playoffs with a style of football, fine. Second season, it was the direct football, but it worked with the players we had. We had players like Ollie Hawkins, who was an exceptional target man, and we had centre halves like Matt Clark and Christian Burgess, who could play the ball as well as hit a long ball as well. So we were unlucky to miss in the playoffs. The squad depth wasn't there in comparison to this season and the season before. So the support for Kenny Jackett slowly waned. There are two big moments for me where I've gone on and off of Kenny Jackett in terms of whether I was fully supportive or not. The first was last season, a game against Coventry City, where Portsmouth were 3-1 up at home. Coventry went down to 9 men, a straight red and 2 second bookings from memory. And Kenny Jackett took off a striker, put on Christian Burgess to make a back 5, ended up drawing 3-3, as you'd expect in that scenario. Yeah. So that immediately turned off loads of the fans immediately after that. And then the playoff defeat to Oxford, where one of your current players, Bryn Morris, was selected instead of Tom Naylor, our captain, for those 2 playoff games, despite him not playing regularly that season at all because of injury. And that and some other reasons made a lot of fans not want Kenny Jackett to continue into this season. And many fans thought that he turned the corner in terms of when he found that aggressive style 4-4-2. I thought that was excellent. I thought that was the turnaround. He's found the philosophy that could get the best out of these players. Because I don't mind Portsmouth playing a direct style of football if it suits the players they have.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I agree.
It doesn't. It doesn't at the moment. So that's why now the time is coming up, I think, in my opinion. Where do I see Portsmouth in 3 years? There's one of your comments.
I was just going to bring you up on that one, yeah.
Ooh. Going with the idea that Portsmouth don't get promoted this season, and Kenny Jackett isn't renewed, it would entirely depend on the new manager who comes in. We have 11 players out of contract. There was an article in the local paper, the News Portsmouth, that said the contracts being offered next season might not be the same as previous seasons because of COVID and the amount of money that Portsmouth have lost. So that might rile up some of the players. It might mean that some players in the summer choose not to go to Portsmouth. They go somewhere else. I think the best way I could describe it is there's a lot of unknowns there. But those unknowns are better than keeping Kenny Jackett as a manager if this side doesn't get promoted. That's the caveat. If Portsmouth do get promoted by the playoffs or automatics by a miracle at this stage, if the club extends Kenny Jackett on a 2-year deal, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that because you have a crack. If he gets the side promoted managerially, he should have a crack at keeping the side in the Championship.
Good stuff. So yeah, that was going to be kind of my next question. Thank you to everyone here that's watching, by the way. Appreciate everyone that's turned up. Make sure you have left a like on the stream if you haven't already. So my next question was going to be about promotion. You seem very kind of pessimistic. You don't think that this squad has got what it takes to go up this season and get themselves into the Championship.
Yeah. Again, I seem quite hypocritical because if you would have asked me 3 months ago, I would have said playoffs were nailed on. Automatics, entirely different matter because there are some excellent teams up here. The top of League One is very competitive. Who do I think will get promoted? Hull City, for one. Even though they're dropping results, I think they've got the best squad in the entire division. The way they play, they can switch from direct football to attacking football very well. They've got exceptional players. Keane Lewis Potter, very, very, very good left winger, who I really like. Jacob Greaves as well at centre half. And general players, the younger players, they're only going to get better, and they're going to make the more senior professionals play up to their standard, from what I've found. So I think Hull City would be up there. I don't actually know who will be the second promotion spot. Peterborough look exceptional. Peterborough look very good going forward, but when Portsmouth played them, they were bad defensively. So that's always a thing I keep on thinking about. Lincoln City play some excellent football. I rate their manager highly, Michael Appleton. Doncaster, who played Portsmouth 2 days ago, they played some exceptional football as well. So I don't actually know who will get that second spot? I don't think it'll be Portsmouth, unfortunately. But we'll
it's
see.
a strange one for us. It's a strange one for us because obviously there's Posh from down the road who we would we don't want to kind of see them get promoted, see them have success, especially if we go down this season. And then Lincoln, we've got a kind of a bit of a rivalry between Michael Appleton. He was manager of Oxford. He came second when we got promoted from League Two. Just before we come on to some of the more questions in the comments, I just want to kind of focus in on this game. On Saturday afternoon. So obviously the reverse fixture, you absolutely hammered us 4-0. If I remember rightly, we were actually okay in the first half. We kind of stayed in the game, but I think you nicked one just before half time. And then obviously in the second half, you kind of ran away with it. What did you make of us in that game?
I didn't think it was a terrible side. There was a clear game plan, which if you see a team fighting a relegation battle with no clear game plan, that's complete write-off, in my opinion. I could see why Keith Curl was set up. I think he set up with a 4-4-1-1, I believe, or something similar.
Yeah.
He clearly wanted to stifle Portsmouth and catch them on the break, which is a good idea, in my opinion, because if Portsmouth don't score the first goal, that's when the confidence issues start to kick in, which has happened to this side a lot. But I wasn't worried. Once Portsmouth got the first goal, it was fine. And that's no disrespect to the Northampton side. That I would expect that against any bottom half. Portsmouth playing against any bottom half side in this league.
Yeah, I think you guys kind of said on your own podcast that you kind of, this is a game that, Portsmouth really should be winning if they're even, serious about getting promotion. And, it won't be an easy game, but you feel like, I think as a Cobblers fan, we'd probably see it the same. If Portsmouth went 1-0 up on Saturday, I don't think we'd feel confident in the fact that we'd be able to come back and win the game. Do you think Cobblers are going to escape relegation? That's a question that's come in. Do you think the Cobblers will survive? I suppose you can probably answer that after Saturday's game.
Yeah, potentially. I saw that your manager has now been extended to the end of the season. Remind me of his name.
John Brady. Yeah, he signed on. Yeah,
John Brady. Yeah. That's a good sign, actually, because that win against Burf Argyle was huge, and then simply not losing games and trying something new with the players. They were clearly frustrated with the football under Keith Curl. It got a bit. Well, from what I found, if a football club plays that style of football, it's fine when you're winning for a long time. But if the results come, then that's when the problems start to kick in. Oh, it's very tough. Looking at some of the other sides down in that division, down at the bottom of the league, Wigan Athletic, I think they're gone. I saw Portsmouth twice play against AFC Wimbledon. I don't rate them at all, so I think they'll get relegated. So that's 2 spots. Bristol Rovers under Joey Barton. I think Joey Barton's a shrewd managerial signing because he'll definitely get the most out of those players in the short term. Whether it will work in a few seasons, we don't know. But he'll definitely galvanise them to a certain extent. And they beat Portsmouth playing the way that I expect Northampton to play, where even though they played 3 at the back, do Northampton normally play a back 4? Or
we do now, yeah. It used to be 3, now it's more 4-3-3.
Now it's back 4. Gillingham beat Portsmouth 3-1. You've seen the defensive errors. You showed you them after the pod. But even so, the way they set up, it was easily done. It was Bristol Rovers, sorry. It was easily done where that back 3 turned into a back 5 and then used the wings effectively, hitting the ball down the channel, attacking the centre halves with pace and forcing mistakes, which I see Northampton doing. Let's have a think of some of the players who I really like. I like Mark Marshall as a player, as a winger. I do like, and Mikel Miller. But this way, even if you get relegated, if you can hold on to Mikel Miller, I think he'll be an excellent striker in League Two, at the very least. And I think if you give him more chances, then if the offensive players for Northampton give him more chances, then I think he'll be a reasonable striker at this level. So
I agree.
I think that Northampton will stay up? I'm not sure. I think 2 of the spots are locked up. Rochdale are a strange team because they're an excellent team going forward, but defensively they're one of the worst in the entire league. So
it's a difficult one because it's a difficult one because we kind of it's so tight down there. I think you're kind of right with Wigan and AFC Wimbledon. I think you said, and then the other teams kind of it's just going to be a scrap. I think Burton seemed to be able. I think they're going to make this great escape. I think there's always one team that looks dead and buried and then kind of makes a great escape. And I think Burton are probably going to beat that team. You mentioned about some of our danger men that could be good in League Two and could cause problems on Saturday afternoon. You've touched on a couple for Pompey. I've got down Ronan Curtis, Andy Cannon, Harvey White, John Marquis, Ellis Harrison, who never scored for Bristol Rovers, and then whenever he played against us, seemed to score. And then Jordi Hirula as well, who seems to kind of be on your bench more than he is in your team. Tell us about them, some of the threats that they're going to cause.
Okay, so I can't remember the rinto, but I think the players who will make an impact on Saturday, John Marquis, if he starts, even though he scored a consolation goal against Doncaster, he took that finish exceptionally well. If he gets given the service and creates high level scoring opportunities, he'll score goals. That's one thing. If Ronan Curtis plays, his form has been down. He's definitely a streaky player, but in certain games he can just do what Ian Robin used to do: cut in on his strong foot. He's right-footed but plays on the left. So if you give him space on the left-hand side, if he cuts in on his strong foot and hits him about 20 yards, then he's made up for all of that. Marcus Harness on the right, who normally plays on the right wing or up front, very technical player, very quick feet and very good passer as well. One player you missed out, Tom Naylor, is an exceptional centre midfielder at this level. Basically, if Tom Naylor doesn't start, then the Portsmouth midfield structure isn't there because he does all the basics right. He covers all the ground, loves a tackle. And when he's fresh, he can support the forwards as well. So those are the main danger men, I think. Where you could exploit Portsmouth, I think, is on your right-hand side or Portsmouth's left. So, for example, if you have a player like Mark Marshall starting on the right wing, if he collects the ball and then dribbles at pace against Sean Raggett, who's our left centre half, and Lee Brown or Charlie Daniels, there's gaps there. Purely down to pace. Sean Raggett's a very good centre half. I do like him. Very good in the air, eats up crosses. But if he's isolated and you've got a player like Marshall or Miller dribbling at him with pace, they will skin him and then be through on goal. So that's an area that Portsmouth are weak at, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think I've always kind of seen the gap between League One and League Two as fairly similar. I think the biggest jump in English football is kind of League One to the Championship rather than Premier League.
I would agree with you.
To the Championship to Premier League. And I think the difference between League One and League Two is the attackers are better. They're better on the ball. They're a bit more technical. Whereas I think the defenders are kind of very similar. I think you see, even with Portsmouth, the same kind of errors are made in League One that are made in League Two. But I think the forwards kind of have a bit more quality in League One. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I really do think so. Look at how Peterborough play a lot of their games. Yes, they didn't get in the playoffs last season, but they should have done with Ivan Toney, Sariki, and Sakiri Dembele as your front three. And yeah, I think you do need a balance, though. If you look at most of the sides that did very well in this division, they're exceptionally well balanced. They don't really have a weakness. I always go back to 2 seasons ago. Look at Barnsley and Luton and how those sides set up. They're exceptional League One sides where you'd look at them and go, they don't have a weakness. Whereas Portsmouth have always had a weakness at one point. I think that's what separates them as a playoff side for me.
Cool. So on to this Saturday then. What's going to happen? What are you expecting to happen? What kind of game are you expecting? And the final one, I guess, is let's get your score prediction, please.
It's going to be a tough one. As I alluded to at the beginning, this is the perfect time for Northampton Town to play Portsmouth. The confidence in the Portsmouth players isn't there. Because the results haven't been there, and there are a lot of individual defensive errors. And Kane Jacket isn't setting up in the 4-4-2, which normally is very good and will get the most out of Portsmouth's attacking players. So as I said, if Northampton wants to get a point out of this game, the longer it remains 0-0, the more pressure on Portsmouth throughout the entire game. Because if Northampton Town get a point, that's an exceptional point to get in a relegation battle against the playoff side. So the longer they sit in 2 banks of 4 because Portsmouth find it sometimes very difficult to play against 2 banks of 4, especially if you flood the middle of midfield. If Northampton players like was it Sean Williams, your centre midfielder?
Yep.
If he covers a lot, if him and his midfield partner cover a lot of ground in the middle, then it stops Portsmouth from moving and creating space. So that's where the Portsmouth long ball stuff comes from. So the longer the Northampton players make that happen, then they've got a chance because they can be dangerous on the counter attack. And it entirely depends on who gets the first goal. If Portsmouth get the first goal in the first 20 minutes, I'm not worried. If it goes into the 70th minute and it's 0-0, it's a different matter entirely. And it's to a certain extent, it's a no-win game for Portsmouth. If Portsmouth get 3 points today, it's not going to change fans' opinions on the manager and the style of play. And heaven forbid if Portsmouth don't get 3 points on Saturday. That's for a side that was billed for automatic promotion at the beginning of the season. That's big. And for Northampton, a draw is an exceptional result.
Absolutely.
My score prediction on the pod, and I will keep to it, I believe it was a 1-1 draw. I don't think Portsmouth have the confidence. I don't think the Portsmouth players have the confidence at the moment to break a team down if they set up the way I described. And Kenny Jackett, with the way he's changing formations, he might come up with something completely different. But I don't trust that. A lot of the players' heads are down, and the Northampton players have everything to play for, and they shouldn't be scared of going up against Portsmouth at all. I don't think, not at the moment anyway. If it was a month ago, I'd be telling you about how exceptional this side is and how hard it will be. So yeah, giving all the Northampton fans some positivity there.
Yeah, we need all the positivity we can get. I think it's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be a scrap. It's gonna be a battle. I'm gonna go for I'll probably agree with you. Probably a 1-1 or a 0-0. I think you guys mentioned on the pod as well. We've had a lot of low scoring draws recently ourselves. So I think to see something similar wouldn't be a surprise. But like I said, Portsmouth get the first goal, they probably win the game by 2 or 3. So yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting one.
One stat I'll leave you with. Portsmouth haven't won a game in over 2 years where they have conceded the first goal.
There you go.
In over 2 years.
There you go, Cobblers fan. You've not won a game since you've conceded the first. An away game, is that, yeah? Or just a game? Any game. Really? Well, it's an incredible stat to end on. Thank you very much for coming on, Freddie. If you just want to tell us all about the PO forecast, where we can find you and what you guys are all about.
Okay, so we're on Twitter and Facebook. Written content is at Pompey News Now on all of our socials. We sometimes have interviews. It really depends if I can get them, and I do tactical analysis there. And we have our podcast, the PO4 Cast. That's the start of the Portsmouth postcode, where we talk about all the games in a more casual manner. So if for any reason you want to know a bit more about Portsmouth Football Club and the players, you can head to those places. And we're affiliated with the Fan Hub app as well, where all of our content will be on as well. So if you have that, if you're in the waiting list for that, go on there as well.
Lovely stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming on. Do go and check out the PO4 podcast if you want to hear all about the mighty Portsmouth. Like them, we're also partnered with Fan Hub as well. The app is out now. There's a bit of a queue. It seems like there's quite a long queue to get on the app at the minute. There'll be a link in the description if you want to go and sign up, or you can just go to this your kind of, what am I getting at? Your Apple store or your Google store or whatever, and download the app from there. So yeah, like I said, thanks very much, Freddie, for coming on. Appreciate you giving up half an hour of your time to speak to us. Thank you to everyone that's joined us in the chat as well, and everyone that's watching this back as a video, which I assume probably most of you are. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit the like button. That really helps us out. If you could hit the subscribe as well, that would be fantastic. Also, thank you to our Patreon supporters as well. We've got Mike Fuller, Adam Page, Luke NTFC, and forgive me, Jason Rodhouse as well, all signed up in a minute. So thank you very much for your support. And if you do want to support us, there's a link in the description for that as well. So yeah, thanks very much to Freddie. Hopefully the Cobblers can get themselves a win on Saturday afternoon. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. And until next time, we'll see you all later.